Hello and welcome to the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast. I'm your host, Nate Goss. Last night was the 94th Annual Academy Awards ceremony, where the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences awards Oscars to what they believe to be the best of the movies of the last year. The last year, 2023, was actually a really incredible year for the movies. And so for this episode of the podcast, we're picking up on a tradition of our own. Becky King, our audiovisual librarian, has come back to the podcast for the 9th straight year to talk with me about what we thought of the year in movies. So let's not waste any more time and let's jump over to my conversation with Becky. All right, Becky, welcome back to the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast. We're once again, this time for the 9th time in a row, we're talking the movies of last year, 2023. So the occasion being the Oscars last night. I'm assuming, of course, you watched in preparation.
I did, of course. Yeah, it's fun to be back.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's just start off with, for you, what do you think were some of the highlights of just the actual televised event?
The broadcast itself. You know, it actually moved along pretty well. I actually loved the part where they had the 5 former winners present for the current nominees. That's very touching, and, you know, they kind of get their due that way. And I thought a really fun moment, I thought, was the Emily Blunt, Ryan Gosling kind of, sparring over the Barbenheimer thing. That was kind of a highlight for me.
Some good banter,
yeah. And then some of the other things are more related to winners, so if you want to talk about that as we go along, that's fine too.
Sure. I thought the performances were really good.
The musical performances
were
great.
Before we jump into the movie categories and talk about that, it's just worth mentioning how fun it was to watch some of those performances. Yeah,
they were really well done this year. And I was thrilled to see Billie Eilish win. I mean, she still amazes me. She's 22 years old.
Right.
It's her second Oscar. What is she, it's just amazing.
It is pretty wild, but it's a great song.
It is, and she's fabulous, and with her brother,
Right, and I know that a lot of people have a feeling about Barbie and how maybe it was snubbed in some of the categories, but I do feel like it got to sort of have its moment of just fun at the show, at least. With the performances, and it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
And hey, Greta Gerwig did seem to be having quite a good time.
She had a great time, yeah.
So let's talk about some of the categories, and we'll tie them into the movies themselves and what we maybe thought of them. And for people listening, obviously the first big one was the Best Supporting Actress, Da'Vine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers.
She's fabulous.
She is.
That was a slam dunk.
Yes.
I mean, she's been winning everything all season long.
She's just so good in that movie, and I really love that movie. That's one of my favorites of the year.
Yeah,
is The Holdovers.
It's a definite. Everybody has to see it.
Yes,
I love it. Yeah, and she's the heart of the movie. I mean, all the characters are so well presented, and they form such a team, but she just lends so much texture to it. I love it.
Yeah, the 3 leads in that, all of them are great. Paul Giamatti being nominated, and of course Dominic Sessa,
brand new,
who's brand new, never really acted in any movies before.
Which you would never know.
All around, just a great movie. I think it's very likable. I think a lot of people, it's not one of those that I'm sitting there saying, it's not for everyone.
No.
I just think a lot of people can watch it. And
it's funny. It's heartwarming.
It's got a great sort of throwback feel to 70s cinema, and it's Alexander Payne, who just, I love
always
a lot
great
of
messages.
Yeah, a lot of his work they're just so human-centered, and all 3 of those characters are great. Okay, how about some other categories here?
Well, if we stick with the supporting category, I think another slam dunk was Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer.
Right.
He seemed so thrilled to win. I think everybody was thrilled to see him win. The other actors in the category were really good, but I think he was the standout this year. So no surprise there.
I was pulling a little from Mark Ruffalo from Poor Things.
He was great.
I love and I feel like he really pushed himself in that
was
role.
Outside
that
his
was
normal.
outside. Yeah. And so maybe we should just talk about that then, because Robert Downey Jr., big night for Oppenheimer.
Oh,
so
definitely.
Oppenheimer really swept, a lot of the big categories.
Right,
as
it has been
Best
doing.
Picture. And
well deserved. I had no argument with that. That was a great movie. And it was such a great movie year in general. I have there's only one Best Picture nominee that I have any bone to pick with at all, but all of them are just amazing films. And I think a lot of them got people back into the theaters, which was great. I mean, the whole Barbenheimer thing was amazing for the theaters.
Yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal year for the movies.
Right.
It started out a little slow, I remember, because for a while I was like, are any good movies going to come? and then all of a sudden it was just like, wham, I just couldn't. I mean, my list is so huge this year with just amazing movies.
I mean, they hit, and then it was like, do you have time to see them?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally enjoyable. One thing, though, I had to laugh about, just I don't know if he was just nervous or so afraid he wasn't going to win, but Christopher Nolan just did not look like he was having a good time all night. I mean, even
him and De Niro.
I know. Well, he probably knew he wasn't going to win.
Right.
He looks grumpy all the time. But I'm like, come on, Christopher Nolan, act excited. This is your big night, right?
Maybe by the time you're giving your fourth or fifth speech, you're just like,
maybe.
From all the different award shows.
Or maybe he's
and
just
things.
numb. Or he could have been afraid. There could be this big backlash because they had been winning everything. Yeah. I feel like that kind of leads into the whole Emma Stone win, I think.
Oh, sure.
With Lily Gladstone, who was so fabulous in Killers of the Flower Moon, and she had really been winning everything throughout the season. And then she was very deserving, but I still think the fact that Emma Stone won was an upset.
Right.
I don't think she expected to win.
Yeah, I mean, I was, if you looked at my ballot and who I was kind of rooting for, it was Lily Gladstone. But, Emma Stone does do a really incredible job in Poor Things. And she just had a crazy year. I mean, she also put out The Curse on Showtime with Nathan Fielder and Ben Safdie. And that show, which I would not recommend to everyone, but it's just, I realized this year how layered of performances Emma Stone is capable
talented,
of. She's so capable. She's such a good actress.
I have a bone to pick with her for her earlier Oscar win because I really
in La La Land
don't know that she deserved it for La La Land, but she deserved it for Poor Things, which you have to admit is also a movie that may not be for everyone. Some people may wonder what the heck this is.
Yeah, so we are here saying we liked it, but not for everyone.
Right, right. It's unbelievably creative. And the production is amazing. Just looking at it is amazing. Yes. And it did win those awards, like production design, costume. And
I was rooting for it to win makeup because of even just Willem Dafoe's makeup job on that.
And they did. And those were deserved. But I think the movie for me was Oppenheimer. Although there were some within the Best Picture category that I loved this year. I would have been fine with any of them winning. We've talked about Past Lives among ourselves before. Fabulous film, small movie. But what a winner of a movie! That's
my pick of the year. If you had to ask me, in a really stacked year, for me, Past Lives, that was it. Celine Song's the debut film. She wrote it and directed it. It's semi-autobiographical from what I understand, but it's got a lot of romance to it. It's a really sweet film and
coming of age. I mean, everything going for it. And that one's been actually on the library shelves for a long time. So watch it if you haven't seen it. You're in for such a treat.
And if I would say for something that on the surface seems like it would be, such a slow and quiet movie, it really moves along very well. It's as soon as you pop it in, it's just you find yourself.
It's very short actually. It's only about an hour and a half.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a lot in there.
Definitely make time for Past Lives.
Yeah. Love it. And then I would say that's one of my favorites, and so is American Fiction, which I love too. Satire about the publishing industry and spot on in today's environment.
Well, and Cord Jefferson had such a good speech too. He won for adapted screenplay, and his pitch to the Academy at that time being like, give people a chance to make these middle budget movies. Right.
Yeah, that was one of the most effective speeches of the night, definitely. But that one isn't out yet. But if you haven't seen it, make sure you do. Loved it.
That's one of the few I didn't catch, and so I'm really excited for it to come out.
I mean, just so many. I mean, all the movies in that category except Maestro. That's my only one. I really didn't like it. I thought it was overblown. It was a big budget movie. You could see the money on the screen. They had big names, but I'm like, it was fine.
Yeah, I was, So, Zone of Interest was nominated for Best Picture. It did win Best Foreign Language Film.
Yes, it did.
Jonathan Glazer.
Yeah, well-deserved. Yeah. That one, that's a movie that's very small and quiet. There's a lot going on. It won the Best Sound Oscar, which, if you see the movie, you'll know why. Again, it's a very quiet film. There's no kind of soundtrack throughout the film, very limited. But there are things happening in the background, if you listen, that are very telling about what's going on the other side of that wall at Auschwitz. So
Jonathan Glazer is just one of those filmmakers that I feel like he doesn't make movies that often.
Right.
And when he does...
Puts everything into
them. I mean, he's really a groundbreaking filmmaker.
For those people that haven't seen it yet, it's Rudolf Hess's family living this kind of idyllic life on one side of the wall at Auschwitz, and on the other side, these horrible things are going on, which you don't see. You don't see any of that. In fact, he said that we've had so many movies about that. People understand the horrific things that happen there. I wanted to show the horror of the normality of life on the other side. Right. It's a sobering movie. It's just incredibly well done. And a lot of that is Sandra Hüller, who's amazing. See it. You have to see it.
Of course.
Any others on the list that you particularly liked?
Well, I want to, it didn't get a lot of love last night, but I really did love Killers of the Flower Moon.
It ended up with nothing, I
right,
think, right?
Yeah. And what really scratches my head is that one did not get adapted screenplay. I mean...
Well, I think we have different opinions on that one then. We always have one that we seem to kind of disagree with. I totally enjoyed that movie. It was incredibly well done. Had you read the book?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
So I think I'm on
I think a lot of our listeners have probably read the book. I mean, that's what I don't understand is it was such a popular book.
But I think among people that I've chatted to about the movie, we kind of all like the book better.
Oh, really?
I mean, I agree that the focus should be on the Osage and what happened to them and how they were just exploited and horrible. But there was, I think, a little more depth to the book with some other stories. And I had trouble with Leonardo DiCaprio. That sounds like sacrilege or something, but I really didn't care for his performance. He kind of, just scowled his way through it. The ending was a little quirky.
Oh, I loved it. I loved all of that. Everything you said, I loved. Yeah,
It's so funny.
But I do find that I don't necessarily want to downplay how much I love the book. I think it's one of those rare moments where you had a truly adapted screenplay. They took the source material and kind of made it into something different so that they really both, I think, can stand on their own. Like, you can love the book for completely different reasons than why you might love the movie. I just felt like it was a really fresh interpretation of a book that a lot of people had read.
Well, and a story that needs to be told. And in a visual format.
And what I love the way Scorsese knows how to just build these moments in movies that just stick with you. Like, I'm thinking of scenes like when they're out burning these wheat fields, there's almost a hallucinatory feel to it. There's the ending, which was the performance that was at the Oscars, like the ending. There's the one ending, which I won't spoil, and then there's the sort of credits at the end.
Yeah.
I love the beginning, how he does this amazing job with a score by Robbie Robertson during the opening of just sort of really getting you to understand in about 2 minutes what the context is, what the setting is, what we're dealing with here.
Right. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it as much as you did.
But I did. But that was just, again, it was just one of those examples of a great year in movies, which I think we could probably swing over into maybe some movies that, were maybe a little more under the radar. But for the year 2023, these are still really worth checking out.
Sure, yeah. You want to go first?
I've got a few, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Asteroid City, which was a Wes Anderson. I'm a huge Wes Anderson film, and I felt like this one really didn't disappoint. And then a couple other ones were like a smaller movie, like You Hurt My Feelings. Did you see that?
That's on my list.
Yeah.
It's on my list with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah.
Loved it.
That was such a good movie.
She can do anything and make it interesting. That was a very small film. She plays one half of a long married couple who's an author, very supportive couple and loving couple. And happens to overhear her husband confessing to their brother-in-law that he really doesn't like her work.
I know.
And it just sends her into a tailspin. Mm-hmm. What's the basis of our marriage?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
It's like a form of cheating in her mind.
It's like a betrayal in her eyes. And so they have to work their way through that, and as only she can. She's so subtle with her comedy and everything like that. So I love that. That was definitely on my list,
and
too.
That's her second working with Nicole Holofcener is the director, and I think writer too. Yeah. I think she writes and directs her stuff.
Fabulous.
But just and it's a good adult movie.
It is a good adult movie and quiet movie again. But I loved it.
Definitely recommend that one.
Yep.
Another one I recommend that did win the visual effects category. But if you're just looking for a really solid action destruction movie, Godzilla -1 is actually
I heard that was great.
It is a really good Godzilla movie. I took my boys to that, and I told them beforehand, I'm like, you realize this is going to be subtitled, and they're like, that's fine, and they loved it.
Good.
They loved it, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for just a good
fun.
Yeah. But it is serious. I mean, it really gets into sort of the. It talks a lot about sort of the Japanese experience of World War II. There's stuff about kamikaze pilots, and then that is sort of tied into this whole Godzilla mythology that really did come out of World War II in Japan. So I thought another one that I just thought, I saw it in the theater and I had a really good time, and this was way back in May, was the movie Air, the one about Air Jordans.
Right, yeah.
with Ben
That was
Affleck.
entertaining. Yeah, loved it.
Yeah.
That was a stacked cast, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Some other ones Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
It's on my list, too.
Okay, what do you have to say about that?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, so many people have read that book over the years, so many, and to see it finally come to the screen and done so incredibly well was just a treat. Great cast. It was like Rachel McAdams, Abby Ryder Fortson, this young actress who just nailed it. Kathy Bates was the grandmother. Terrific. I mean, a really great, faithful adaptation and so well done. It was almost a relief. Like, please don't mess this up, right? And it turned out to be a great movie.
And then I just have two more really just quick documentaries. One of them is, I can't even remember if it was nominated, but it's the one on Netflix called American Symphony about John Baptiste. You could watch it alone just for watching him play piano in it. I mean, you just really get to see him in his creative moments. He's working with collaborators, and you watch him try to build this symphony that he's been commissioned to write. But then the documentary also happens to catch him at a time where his girlfriend and now wife is diagnosed with her second bout of cancer, and how they work through that deal with that. And she's a really great musician in her own right as well. So their marriage is very creative. Their marriage is one that's built around art. And that was just I highly recommend it as just a really heartwarming. It has moments that are kind of, hard to watch, but at the same time, it's so life-affirming and hopeful. And John Baptiste is just amazing. He's the real deal. He's the real deal, that
guy. And he did get to perform last night because the song was nominated.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is,
so it was good to see him.
And that song was good.
Yeah.
But the highlight of that documentary is the actual symphony that you get to see. And then another one that was just like, if you like music and you like music documentaries, it was a good year for those. There was a really good one on Little Richard called Little Richard, and there was a really good one on Wham called Wham.
Isn't that funny? I know. Like all these things from the past.
And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from watching those, and those are easily available to stream.
I think those are becoming more common. Don't you think? They're like going back, and I mean, the last few years have been great ones on Tina Turner, Linda Ronstadt. Right. I mean, they're just picking up all these artists that were so groundbreaking at the time and really going back and examining their careers. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. I'll end there, but how about you? Do you have any?
Okay, so it's funny that we overlapped on two, because a lot of times we don't. So we talked about You Hurt My Feelings and Are You There, God? I liked, and again, this might be a movie that's not for everyone, but it's called The Royal Hotel. It was directed by Kitty Green and stars Julia Garner. And they worked together a few years ago on a film called The Assistant, which you and I showed recently for our Cinema Club program. And it's these two college-age girls that are making their way around Australia. They need money. They got to get a job, and they're kind of sent to this hotel in the outback. Seriously, or was that New Zealand? I don't even know. I'm messing it up. But they're like basically the only women in the area with these men who have nothing better to do with their free time than drink. You know it's not going to go well. It's
pretty harrowing.
It has this menacing feel through it, like The Assistant did in a quiet way. But it turns out to be this like feminist treatsy. The ending is not what you expect.
All right.
Definitely worth a watch. Another kind of short film that has a lot to say. And Julia Garner, I'll watch her in anything. I think she's incredibly talented. Yeah. So that's called The Royal Hotel. And then I always try to put one on my list that's just a fun movie. So for me that year was Jerry and Marge Go Large. And, and it was, this, again, Bryan Cranston and Annette Bening. So that part right there, they are great for the material. Bryan Cranston is kind of forced into retirement from his corporate job, and he needs something to do. And he kind of figures out that there's this flaw in the lottery system, like the national lottery system. They live in Michigan, and he works it. He exploits it. He figures out how it works. He starts making a lot of money, and they're going to help their small town in Michigan recover because it's really struggling. And then there's this little brat at Harvard who's kind of figuring it all out at the same time. So part of the fun of the movie is they're butting heads and trying to beat each other. So just a fun movie.
Okay, great. All right, so we just went through a ton of movies. For the listeners who want to actually start digging into some of these, what are some of the best ways that they can do so with their library card?
The usual, we get them in on DVD and Blu-ray as soon as they're available to purchase. We put those orders in, so keep an eye on our online catalog and make sure and sign up for our monthly feature film newsletter to get the early word on that. Some of them are coming out already, and a lot of them are streaming. So check, Netflix, Amazon Prime. And for those, if you don't have those services yourself, we have Roku's that we circulate, which is such a great deal. They're so easy to use, so go ahead and put some of those on hold. And then you can stream to your heart's content without having a subscription of your own. It's
for one
great
week.
deal. Yes, for 1 week.
For 1 week,
Check out a week at a time.
And the way those work is we've got basically every Roku has a single service on it. So you check out a Netflix Roku or a Max Roku. And so I always recommend there's the website. It's called justwatch.com that you can use to type in any movie and it will tell you what platform
where you can watch.
These are streaming on currently.
Right.
So use that to figure out where it's streaming and then, look and see if you can get one of those Rokus from the library.
And some of them are still in theaters, so I always put the plug in. Go see them in the theater. I mean, it's just a different experience altogether.
Yeah. One thing we forgot to mention was the actual streaming services that we have.
Right. And one thing, we talked so much about Past Lives, and we hope everybody watches that film. Our Hoopla e-library service right now just announced that they are now streaming A24 films, which is those
amazing.
Are wonderful films. And Past Lives is an A24 film. And that is so that you can stream that on Hoopla. We have the DVDs in on that too.
Yeah.
But, if you want to stream it, Hoopla's your baby on that one.
Awesome. All right. Well, it's been good talking the movies with you, Becky. Again, for the 9th time. We'll have to do it another next year and make it
Even
a solid 10.
Yeah. I know. That's kind of shocking when you think about it.
I
won't think about it.
All right.
It's okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
Okay. Always fun. Thanks.
All right. That's going to be it for our episode. I really hope that you do go and check out some of the movies that we discussed. If you'd like to search our catalog and see which ones are available, head on over to our website, cooklib.org, and search the catalog. And while you're over on our website, make sure you take a look at our blog, where you can read things like book reviews, local history stories, genealogy tips, and so much more. You'll find our blog on our homepage and also scattered throughout our new library website. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell others you know about it and let them know that they can listen to this episode along with any past or future episodes of the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever they like getting their podcasts. And if you really like the episode, please take some time to rate and review us. Those ratings and reviews do help us find new listeners. We will be back soon, but until then, keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening.